A scary man entered your home and convinced you at the ripe age of 6 that your parents didn't want you. Would you become a space marine? That's the question for today's video. Well, for Ender Wiggin, he said that yes, and that is where we have our book review for today, which is Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. To start this video today, guys, I have a special disclaimer about the Orson Scott Card controversy. If you haven't heard of it, if you just look up Orson Scott Card controversy, it'll give you the whole spiel. But basically, he's outspoken about the derogatorily toward certain demographics of sexes and people. But um, for the sake of this review, I'm going to take it from a strictly formalist literary lens. So we won't be considering the author and how maybe their agendas in the real world may leak into their writing. And to Orson Scott Card's defense, I guess, it only happens a couple times in this book where there's a couple, just yikes moments where it's like, whoa, okay, that's a little weird to talk about. But um, we're going to sort of disregard those things and just focus on the story as the story and completely, kill the author in this situation. We're just going to read the book or review the book for what it is as a story. But first, let's talk about the bad news here, the things that I didn't like about the story. And one thing that I've seen in a lot of reviews um, as a major target towards the story that's not concerning the author is sort of the structure. I believe Ender's Game was a short story before Card adapted it into a full length novel, but the story structure does feel repetitive at times. And I sort of talked about this on my review on Instagram under the same name, BookMan. So if you want to follow me, but it does feel sort of once you get off the home world of Earth, Ender sort of goes through this repetition where here's the challenge for Ender. Okay, Ender overcomes the challenge. He gets promoted. Okay, let's do uh, more battles, more challenges in the battle arena. And, okay, he does that. He gets promoted. Okay, let's do it again. Um, it is sort of what's the word, like lit RPG kind of in that way where it's like, okay, he does this, he gets promoted. Let's move on to the next thing. He does this. Let's get promoted. And of course, he's not facing the same challenge every time. I mean, there is a lot of intrigue with like how the other students in the school see Ender and interact with him. Um, that's not really touched on too much. It is a major plot point nearing the end of the last like 4/4 of the story, with a collection of students who like want to kill him. But yeah, it does sort of fall into that lull a little bit, and I didn't really notice it because the first couple times we sort of see the structure, it's not. It doesn't. It doesn't. I'm sorry. I think my girlfriend just farted. It doesn't penalize the reading experience really at all for me. It wasn't until the end where I sort of like, hey, yeah, that is true, and also in the reviews, sort of furthered my like opinion on that. That like, hey, other people were also experiencing that. It does feel like a little bit of a cycle sometimes with Ender and how he promotes. And by promotes, I mean how he progresses through the story. My last and final critique of Ender's Game would have to be some of the intelligence levels of the casts considering their age. Ender is like 11 or 12, I think, by the end of the book, and successfully controls a whole armada, fleet, squadron, army, basically, of space marines and kills the Booger army, which is the invading alien invading. Well, they invaded twice, and then the humans are the ones invading now. So basically, he completes the third war with these aliens, commits complete genocide of an entire race, and kills them. He does that at 12 or 13. I think with Ender, you can maybe make a case that if he was in the school 24/7 and learning 24/7, that maybe someone of that age would be able to accomplish the things that he does. he also kills people really easily. I mean, he like headbutts this kid in the face. Well, I guess if you hit someone in the nose, you could kill them, but he also killed another kid before he even like got into space. So, I mean, Jesus, guy is like kind of like Clark Kent. I feel like, but like with the intelligence of like I don't know, Professor X. But I mean, with books like Dune, you have characters who are also extremely intelligent at young ages, but there's in universe explanations for that. So, like in the Dune universe, there is no forms of like artificial intelligence or you know m- smart calculators to like complete elaborate equations. They train people to do that. That's why they have mentats, right? And they also have the Bene Gesserit in their generational training and breeding program, where it's like, okay, in this universe, it's understandable why kids are born. They're like super intelligent, for their age. In Ender's Game, I'm just assuming that they're humans, regular to or like true to real world humans. I mean, I accept it is in the future, so maybe humans would have a better grasp of the universe around them, but still these kids are very young and doing very incredible things. Like Ender is not as bad, but the example where it really becomes apparent is with Peter and Valentine, Ender's older brother and older sister, who remain on Earth, and through like the web system, internet system, they make like Twitter accounts and rule the world because they convince all these people with like their policies, and they sort of become like huge public figures that influence politics in the world through their like fake accounts that they're making under pen names, which are Demosthenes, and the other one is Locke for like John Locke. To which, at the conclusion of the book, we are given uh, Valentine tells Ender that there has been the Locke proposal, which is basically grants world peace, or it collects all of the hegemony and continents of Earth together under peace, and that was because uh, that was a result of his X profile that he had that convinced everybody, and he is about like 13, 14, 15, maybe in that range. He's the oldest brother. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong about how old Peter is, but Valentine is younger than him, and she's also able to persuade all of these people into, sort of believing and falling in line with what her ideologies are that she posts online. Basically, uh, Peter establishes her as like the radical, so he could come in as like the moderate and become a world leader because that's his goal is to rule the world like an Alexander the Great or Napoleon or whatever. But he's doing this at a very young age. I mean, I get that like what Alexander the Great was like 13 or 14 or something when he ruled the world, but I don't know. It sort of stretches your. I'm trying to think of the word here. When you're reading a fantastical or science fiction story, there's that sort of like release of reality. It's like you have to buy into the story. Like, okay, this isn't. They're not working on the same parameters as we are, and I can buy into that. Sometimes that veil can be stretched too far, though, and it kind of breaks immersion for me. So, like the little kids doing like crazy things breaks it a little bit for me. So that was another issue that I found with this book. The pros of Ender's Game, the things that I really liked, and there's some really good aspects to this book, hence why it is a sci-fi classic. But one thing is the world building. The world is very rich, and the way in which Orson Scott Card delivers this information is it's not information dumps, or it's not given in a way that sort of breaks the rhythm of the story. It's given through bits and pieces, which makes it very feel natural the way that we learn how this world works, and it is interesting. I mean, we have hegemony of America. We have a Warsaw Pact in Russia, so we have some tension between superpower Russia and the rest of the world, and conspiracies of Russia maybe starting a war once the Booger War is over, which is the war that the humans are currently having against aliens. I really liked the character work in this book as well. Ender's a very, fascinating and such a real character, him sort of fighting with the idea that maybe he is like his vicious brother Peter in some ways. The whole book, he's sort of trying to convince himself that he's not like Peter. He's not a killer, and he is like a caring person. And then you see him wipe out a whole alien society basically because he's been manipulated the whole time, but also did buy into why he needed to fight this war. But just a very tragic character, very well done. His relationship with Colonel Graff is like one of my favorite sort of mentor mentee relationships in a story that I've read in a very long time. It's just so toxic, but it's so interesting to push and pull. We see Graf really does care for Ender and wants the best for him, but he also cares for the human race and understands that Ender is probably the last chance for the humans to really defeat the boogers. And so he pushes him and manipulates him and does what's needed for the human race. But he also does care for Ender, so it's not something that he is happy to do, but he's willing to do. Valentine and Peter are also pretty interesting characters to me, even if maybe they are too young. But their arcs there and how their family dynamic works is also very interesting to sort of watch unfold, especially late in later stages of the book. Also, Ender Game has the appeal of like most school setting stories have. We all have a soft spot, a fond place for school, or we have a or the complete opposite. But either way, we have a certain feeling towards school. And this is a school story, but in less of like a cozy Hogwarts type of setting. It's more like a military boot camp here in this case because they are training soldiers to fight a war. But it's also always interesting in the school setting to see how the students interact with each other, and that's a big part of this one because we sort of see Ender's rise to fame in the school as the prodigal student and how this affects his relationships with his comrades and how this creates tension in some cases with people who really hate him and try to kill him. But that environment and tension there is also always a fun setting to read about, so that also works in the story's favor. Now, I could get on this camera and lie to all these viewers and say that I saw that twist coming at the end. I knew it would happen. Um, it really did surprise me, and I really did enjoy it. I know for some people it might not have worked as well, and I understand that perspective. I was reaching the end of the book, and they were still training Ender, and I was like, "Okay, so when is he actually gonna go fight these guys?" Well, spoiler alert, he's been fighting them, the whole time. Not the whole time while he was fighting in the school and, like, the, little arena they have for, mock battles, but since he got to Commander School, he's been fighting them the whole time. And that's was it worked for me, honestly. I really liked it. And I enjoyed the ending as well because it really sets up for what this next book, which is I've heard from a lot of sources, is the best book in the whole series, and the best card book, which is Speaker for the Dead. Because the conclusion of this book, we find out that the boogers, it was really just a fault in communication that caused these wars, and the boogers weren't able to properly communicate that they wanted peace, and the humans weren't able to either because they're aliens to each other. They've had different sort of genetical uh, evolutionary tracks, and it just led to them having two completely different modes of communication. So you find out at the end the boogers weren't going to invade again. They were just going to kind of chill out on their home world, and then the humans came by and Ender dropped like a Super Saiyan nuclear bomb on the entire planet and killed them. But then he finds the egg of a queen of the boogers because they're sort of like bees in a way because there's like a queen bee and then it's sort of like a hive mind sort of ordeal with the boogers and they kind of look like bugs too. But he finds this egg and he sort of communicates with it in a very sci-fi scene, sci-fi fantasy. It's really well done, I would say, the way he portrays how this like egg is communicating to him. But now this egg sort of gives him this message that they were, you know, that they can't blame the humans for taking them out because, like I said, the barrier of communication. But this is what they meant to do, and they weren't going to be harmful anymore. So he sort of spreads the message of the speaker for the dead, um, which would be the queen. And that was I really like that. That was a pretty cool ending too. And I'm excited. It left me with I don't know how well that ending would have worked if I didn't know there was a second book coming, because I think it sets up the second book super well. Because now I'm super invested in what's going to happen in the second book. But if there wasn't that second book, I don't know if this ending would work for me as much. But in this case, there is a second book, and so I think the ending does work pretty well. That will conclude the Ender's Game review for today, guys. Um, there were a few nitpicks and flaws that I saw in this book, but overall, I enjoyed it pretty well. I would give it around a 3.5 star rating out of 5. I'm super excited for Speaker for the Dead, though. Or we'll read that one, and I'll do probably post a review up for that one at some point. Right now, I'm reading Morning Star, trying to finish out the Little Red Rising trilogy and see if I'll go on to read the other two books. If anyone has read Iron Gold and Lightbringer, let me know your thoughts. Sorry if my coffee machine is cutting me off, but yeah, so that'll be all for the video today, guys. Thank you for watching, and there may be a secret double upload today if I'm feeling up to it. Maybe not. We'll see. But thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.